priorities at the Security Council platform. For the sake of this, for the third consecutive day, the Security Council has had heinous rapporteurs from civil society imposed upon it. Not only do they not provide any added value to this discussion, but through their emotionally charged, unsubstantiated monologues, they have transformed meetings of the Security Council into a farce. And this is precisely what the international community observed on Tuesday during the meeting on the situation on Syria, when well-known fabricators and liars were invited from the White Helmets NGO were invited to participate in the Security Council meeting. And the same egregious situation was repeated yesterday during the meeting on the issue of children in the context of the Ukrainian crisis, where effectively a whole three representatives of NGOs spoke. We are perfectly aware that the individual represented, seated at the Ukrainian seat is a representative of civil society, and we did not see any confirmation of how this individual was in any way authorized to speak on behalf of a state. It is clear that in order to avoid awkward questions, the presidency did not deem it necessary, contrary to established practice, to inform members of the Security Council in advance that not a permanent representative will speak under Rule 37. Not a permanent representative of a state will speak under Rule 37. This was not something that the Council was informed of. And the list of speakers circulated, this individual was not on that list of speakers. There is no doubt that today's briefer from civil society will also advance Washington's manuals and adhere to them, and will not provide any new perspective for the consideration of the issue on the agenda. What is the point of wasting the Council's members' time on this farce? We are very much concerned about all this in terms of the fact that this undermines the authority of the Security Council. The Council should not become a platform for American inter-party conflict or campaign rallies. If the entire month continues based on what we have, in the same way that this week has advanced, if the U.S. presidency continues to generously provide airtime to the Council to myriad propagandists, crooks engaged in and PR for their advisors and public relations representatives, then the entire month of January will become the Security Council will transform in the month of January into a cheap talk show. And this will have catastrophic consequences, not just for the reputation of the Security Council, but also when it comes to the crises on the ground. We call upon the presidency to give this some thought, and for the membership of the Security Council not to indulge such behavior. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for their statement. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I also intend to invite, in addition to Ms. Nakamitsu, Mr. Nidal Shikani, Director General of the Chemical Violations Documentation Center of Syria. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I wish to draw the attention of Council members to document S/2024/861, a letter dated 26 November 2024 from the Secretary General addressed to the President of the Security Council. I now give the floor to Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, I thank Council members for the opportunity to brief you once again on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2118 on the elimination of the chemical weapons program of the Syrian Arab Republic. Before I begin my part of the briefing, I wish to state the United Nations' concern regarding the deteriorating security situation in Syria and reiterate the appeal by UN Special Envoy for Syria, Mr. Geir Pedersen, in this Council just 2 days ago for de-escalation and calm, and for all parties to respect their obligations under international law to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure. Since the last consideration of this matter by this Council, consistent with established practice, the Office for Disarmament Affairs has been in regular contact with its counterparts in the OPCW Technical Secretariat on activities related to Resolution 2118. Mr. President, since the Council's previous meeting on this matter, the OPCW Declaration Assessment Team, or DAT, has continued its efforts to clarify all outstanding issues regarding the initial declaration and subsequent declarations submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic. Following the delays reported at the Council's previous meeting on this matter, the 28th round of consultations between the DAT and the Syrian National Authority took place between 10 and 18 September 2024. I am informed that during this round of consultations, the DAT conducted technical meetings with experts from the Syrian National Authority, during which the status of outstanding issue was discussed. As of the date of this report, the DAT continues to analyze the information gathered during the 28th round of consultations from the documents submitted by the Syrian National Authority, interviews, and explanations provided by Syrian experts. The DAT has also continued to follow up with the Syrian National Authority with regard to the results of the analysis of the samples collected in May 2024 in order for the DAT to proceed with its assessment of the relevant outstanding issues. Through a note verbal dated 11th of November 2024, the Syrian National Authority provided explanations of the results of the analysis of these samples. The DAT is currently assessing the information provided and will report on the outcome of this assessment in due course. I have also been informed that through a note verbal dated 1st of November 2024, DAT requested the Syrian National Authority to identify at the earliest among the more than 1,000 pages of information submitted during the 28th round of consultations, those elements relevant to the explanations it had provided to progress in resolving outstanding issues. As of the date of this report, the OPCW Technical Secretariat had not received the Syrian National Authority's response to this request. Mr. President, therefore, as previously reported, the DAT has raised and reported a total of 26 outstanding issues with regard to the Syrian Arab Republic's declaration, of which 19 remain unresolved. These include 2 recently opened outstanding issues related to potentially undeclared full-scale development and production of chemical weapons at 2 declared chemical weapons-related facilities, which were previously declared as having never been in operation. The OPCW Technical Secretariat reports that, at this stage, the substance of the 19 outstanding issues remains a serious concern, as it involves large quantities of chemical warfare agents and munitions that were reportedly destroyed or otherwise consumed prior to the Syrian Arab Republic's accession to the Chemical Weapons Convention, the fate of which cannot be fully verified by the OPCW. It also involves potentially large quantities of chemical warfare agents, the production which has not been declared by the Syrian Arab Republic to the OPCW Technical Secretariat. I reiterate that this is extremely worrying. Mr. President, I have been informed that the 11th round of inspections of Barza and Jamraya facilities of the Scientific Studies and Research Center, or SSRC, took place from 12 to 20th November 2024, after a postponement from September due to security reasons. The OPCW Technical Secretariat will report on the outcome of these inspections in due course and is planning for the 12th round of inspections to take place before the end of the year. As of the date of this month's report, the OPCW Technical Secretariat has not received any new information that might resolve the issues related to the presence of a Schedule II chemical in the samples collected during the November 2018 inspection, and to the origin and usage of a chemical of dual-use nature observed by the inspection team during the September 2022 inspection at the SSRC Barza facilities. The OPCW Technical Secretariat will further engage on these issues with the Syrian National Authority during the next round of SSRC inspections. As reported previously, the OPCW Technical Secretariat has also requested information regarding the unauthorized movement of the 2 cylinders related to the chemical weapon incident that took place in Douma on 7th of April 2018, which were allegedly destroyed in an attack on a chemical weapons production facility. I have been informed that as of the date of this report, the Technical Secretariat has not received a response to this request. Mr. President, the OPCW Technical Secretariat remains fully committed to implementing its mandate aimed at verifying the fulfillment of the Syrian Arab Republic's declaration obligations under the Convention, decisions by OPCW policy-making organs, and Security Council resolutions. However, as has been previously emphasized, full cooperation by the Syrian Arab Republic with the OPCW Technical Secretariat is essential to closing all outstanding issues. Considering the identified gaps, inconsistencies, and discrepancies that remain unresolved, at this time, the OPCW Technical Secretariat assesses that the declaration submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic still cannot be considered accurate and complete in accordance with the Chemical Weapons Convention. I call upon the Syrian Arab Republic to cooperate with the OPCW Technical Secretariat and respond with urgency to all of the Technical Secretariat's requests. Mr. President, I have been advised that the OPCW Fact-Finding Mission, or FFM, continues to study all available information related to allegations of the use of chemical weapons in the Syrian Arab Republic and will issue further reports in due course. The Investigation and Identification Team, or IIT, also continues its investigations into incidents in which the fact-finding mission has determined that chemical weapons were used or likely used in the Syrian Arab Republic and will issue further reports in due course. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, last week, the world observed the Day of Remembrance for all victims of chemical warfare. In his message to mark the occasion and to pay tribute to all those who have been killed or injured by such horrific weapons, the Secretary General called upon the global community to reaffirm their commitment to the Chemical Weapons Convention and end impunity and live up to the Pact for the Future's pledge for a world free of such weapons. I urge the members of this Council to unite and show leadership in demonstrating that any use of chemical weapons is unacceptable. The United Nations will continue to do our part to support all efforts to uphold the norm against the use of chemical weapons anywhere, at any time. I thank you very much for your attention.
I thank Ms. Nakamitsu for her briefing. I now give the floor to Mr. Nidal Shikani. Mr. Shikani, you have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to express my sincere thanks to the Friends of Syria, as well as the delegation of the United States of America, for this valuable and fruitful invitation, which gave us this opportunity to shed light on this thorny and sensitive dossier. Syria has witnessed one of the most terrifying chapters in the history of the region due to the use of chemical weapons. Chemical weapons have turned the lives of Syrians into hell. It pushed the entire world into a political and legal conflict that prevented them from the complete elimination of chemical arsenals, which still pose a serious danger to international peace and security. According to the documentations of the Chemical Violations Documentation Center of Syria, 262 chemical weapons uses have been recorded, resulting in the killing of 3,423 victims and the injury of around 14,000 civilians. The use of such weapons have led to deformed childbirths and psychological trauma to the victims, in addition to the death of animals and the destruction of soil. From the outset, our units have provided full support to the OPCW and all the tasks assigned to international investigative teams. This included the fact-finding mission, the joint verification mechanism, the investigation and identification team, and the international impartial and independent mechanism. In this vein, it is important to commend the important effort of the OPCW since the beginning of its work, when it created accountability tools to ensure a world free of chemical weapons. We have supported most international investigations and gathered thousands of documented evidence which cannot be challenged. This aimed to prove that chemical weapons were used for hostile purposes. We were also attempting to identify those involved, those perpetrators, including the detection of the chain of command. This documentation contributed to ensuring the rights of the victims on the one hand, and on the other hand, to strengthen the capacity of state parties to implement the Chemical Weapons Convention. It will also lead to a deeper understanding of the Chemical Weapons Convention and the different declarations, including the Declaration of Syria. Following the issuance of the UN Security Council Resolution 2118 of 2013, which demanded the elimination of the Syrian chemical arsenal and the destruction of its stockpile, chlorine was used in different occasions and locations, and it continued for 5 years. The sarin also was used in Damo and Latamia, and in both cities, the sarin used matched the declared Syrian stock. Such violations prove the continued manipulation of the Syrian Arab Republic with OPCW. The reports of the organization mentioned the outstanding issues, and it seems that the Syrian Arab Republic adopted a policy of procrastination and the non-fulfillment of its obligations under the Convention and UN Council resolutions in light of the unresolved gaps and contradictions. Therefore, their declaration cannot be considered accurate and complete. The efforts made by the fact-finding mission since 2014 and up till this very date to document the use of chemical weapons as weapons of war contribute to the protection of the rights of state parties. It also helped to establish cases on which mandates were established to identify the perpetrators of such crimes. Similarly, the GEMS reports and the investigation and identification team have made effort to prove the systematic use of chemical weapons, which is a flagrant challenge to UN Security Council resolutions and a violation of the rights of state parties. It is also a threat to international peace and security. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, chemical weapons issues, including those related to Syria's opaque stockpile, need urgent and firm international action. We have to think outside the box and adopt new strategies that will ensure a world free from weapons of mass destruction and ensure holding the users of such weapons to accountability. On another side, countries supporting the Syrian regime must stop protecting it. They must stop protecting this chemical terrorist weaponry which threatens Syrians, violates international conventions, and instead must support accountability and maintain the rights of the parties. Syria's non-accession to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court poses a major challenge to many issues. Therefore, the establishment of an independent judicial entity with a global mandate to hold those involved accountable and ensure that will not go unpunished is essential. This entity would strengthen the concept of the chemical weapons Convention and ensure their eradication in the future. To conclude, the use of chemical weapons in the 21st century is a stain on humanity. It's also a permanent danger that must be dealt with seriously and rigorously to ensure a world free of weapons of mass destruction and to achieve the goals for which the UN Security Council was established, as well as other UN entities. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank Mr. Shikani for his briefing. I now give the floor to those council members who wish to make statements. I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. We thank the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Madam Izumi Nakamitsu, for her briefing. There was nothing fundamentally new that we heard today. The OPCW Technical Secretariat continues to obediently comply with Western orders to taint the reputation of both Syria and its allies. Platitudinous premises are advanced about the alleged failure by Syria to comply with its obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention. At the same time, what is being ignored is the assistance being provided by Damascus to the staff of the mission on the assessment of the initial declaration in Syria. As is the fact, this fact is also ignored that the Syrians are continuing to conscientiously cooperate with the OPCW. And this, after the decision advanced and pushed through by the West to strip Damascus of its rights and lift its immunities under the CWC, they could have decided not to do so, but they are cooperating. Any objective observer or expert, our Western colleagues, of course, are not that, cannot deny the fact that the Syrian authorities have been demonstrating utmost responsibility when it comes to the provision of documentation with the aim of closing outstanding questions related to the initial declaration. Syria, in general, remains the state that is most subject to most significant scrutiny by the of the states parties to the CWC. Over the past 11 years, 150 technical meetings were carried out, 45 visits were carried out to facilities, 180 samples were collected, and thousands of pages of documents were received. But despite all of this, new fabricated accusations continue to be mount against Damascus. Suffice it to recall the absurd story with the canisters linked to the 2008 incident in Douma, which were destroyed as a result of an Israeli missile strike. The those Westerners who attained Syria are well aware of this, but they continue nonetheless to raise this issue, including at the United Nations Security Council. Distinguished colleagues, we do not see any point today in dwelling on the technical details of the Syrian chemical dossier. We are aware that during today's meeting there will be significant criticism against Syria and possibly Russia. And it is possible that there will be a premiere, so to speak, of new allegations being trotted out. We would simply note that the general scheme vis-à-vis the meeting and the topic of the Syrian chemical weapons dossier. Regardless of what Syria may state, this is not accepted by the West. Regardless of what Syria may do, regardless of what good faith steps Syria may undertake, this is always, in the version of the West, always turns out to be insufficient. Everything else is mere nuance, which is meaningless and does not reverse this trend in any way.